Good morning, 333. Yes, one of those nights. 3 hours from the time I turned the lights out till I woke up, right to the minute, 9:30 to 12:30. And I did not get back to sleep, so here I am doing a video at 3:33 in the morning, and the title is When the Darkness Begins to Glow. The image coming to me as I meditated this morning seemed strange. At first there was just darkness. Slowly, however, as I peered into the darkness, it began to glow. As I pondered this, I realized that peering into the darkness was equivalent to shining the light of my consciousness, which is slowly awakening along with many others around the globe. And I have an error here that I've got to fix, or I'll forget about it. Okay, there. The intensity of the light is generating heat, hence the glowing phenomena. Things that had been long hidden in the shadow, and it should be shadows. I should read this before I start reading it. Out loud, I mean. Were being transformed, or in some cases consumed. It may be too early to determine exactly how this transformation will play out. However, I sense that it's good. Very, very good. The awakening is well on its way. I can't give dates, nor would I want to at this point. All of us have suffered far too much from the disappointment caused by unfulfilled promises and hopeful expectations that seem to fall short of fulfillment. One thing I will do, however, I will keep shining the light. Yeah, my thoughts were all over the place this morning after I woke up and initially tried to get back to sleep and then started praying for the people on my prayer list. And then I just was in a silent place for a good while. And it was like I was peering down into the darkness from a higher vantage point that I didn't even think to try to describe it. It was just that I was looking down into this pit, and it was dark in the pit, but as I said, I saw glowing. It was almost like looking into an inactive volcano that was all of a sudden activating. That would probably be a way to describe it. Uh, in any case, it hadn't erupted, but there was glowing. I mean, I could see the glowing down there, the heat that was being generated. I can't say that I felt it, and it was sort of like a daydream. I wasn't asleep, and neither was I fully in the normal state of consciousness. I guess that's what meditation is sometimes, and I was able to fall into that space and just see this. And then, of course, my mind activated, and I began to ponder, what does this mean? What is it about? In light of everything else that I'd been focusing on the past couple of days, in the past while, including the Anastasia thing about her trusting her little infant and toddler to be raised by bears and wolves and to explore whatever, to explore the bugs and creatures that it saw and just learn about what it meant to be human by experiencing itself in nature without guidance, not trying to force it in one direction or another. And I wonder, what would happen if we'd all been raised to trust nature instead of being programmed, our minds being programmed into some matrix that saw us as less than and saw us as incompetent and saw us as ignorant masses. You know, we're not ignorant, but we did fall asleep. And I guess you could say that I could see why people would call that ignorant. But there's so much potential within us. And yet that potential, the lights were almost turned out. And the shadows became so dark. that all we wanted to do is pretend it wasn't dark. Spirituality 101. Just go toward the light. Don't even acknowledge that the darkness exists. Well, Spirituality 202, and I'm quoting this from a video that I watched yesterday that a friend sent me from Teal Scott, whatever you want to call her. And she talked about Spirituality 101, 202, and 303. And she likened that to the Father, Holy Spirit, and Son. I don't know why that analogy, especially in light of my current theological persuasions. But in any case, I'm not going to go into that, except to say that it's important that we shine the light into the darkness. It's important that we explore our shadow, which is our own personal piece of that darkness that exists around the world. And I don't buy the idea that we're not supposed to get away from what is wrong. Recognizing what is wrong is a very important part of shining the light. That's what I've been doing. That's what those of us that are trying to help the awakening move quicker. We're trying to get everyone to look at what's wrong. Shine the light where it's dark. And where is it dark? It's dark in the government. It's dark in the corporate structures. It's dark in the institutions that we've created, the systems. As Anastasia says, I can't create a system for you. I can't do that, Vladimir. I can't create a system for you because I can't improve on the system that already is, which is called nature or goddess or the divine. I can't improve on what God did. Anything that I would do would be going backwards. It would be creating darkness. It would be creating more ignorance. It would be creating that which we don't want. I have to recognize what God has already given, what's already been provided. And when I accept that it's good, and I shine the light into it, things get transformed. The systems start falling apart. Anastasia was a system buster without even trying to bust the system. She just followed her heart. She didn't analyze it and try to put it into little packages of 101, 202, 303. Levels of spirituality. No, she didn't do that. She just lived her life. And she was raising her son to live his life, just according to what he was able to read for himself. My son, you are infinite. You are eternal. And all that you need is within you. And I may not be quoting that exactly the way it was. That was from a different book that I haven't read for a while. But something like that. He read it in nature. He read it in the trees. He says, I know how to read. Mama Anastasia taught me. And we need to start learning how to read. Not what's written in books as much as what's written within the fleshy tables of our own hearts. And we need to let that light of our own consciousness, as it awakens, shine into our own darkness and create the transformation. Now, as I was pondering, one of the things that came to me, of course, is the people that have been enmeshed in the system, the judges, the politicians, the bankers, the heads of business and the heads of institutions and everything, and all of the bosses of the Matrix program, the Matrix system, and how they are in darkness, but they call it Illuminati. Strange. But how furious the glowing was, the fury of them realizing that we're catching on to their bullshit. We're catching on to the absolute insanity of the whole system. We're starting to see the corruption. We're starting to see how they've broken the rules that they knew existed. I want you to get that. I want to underline that for you. They created the system, but they had to put the remedy in there. They had to put the truth in there also. Yes, they concealed it with a lot of other things. There were a lot of detours and misdirections that were purposely placed into the structure. However, the truth was there. It was there all along. It's been there all along. But people were not paying attention to it. We were easily misdirected to look somewhere else, to focus our attention somewhere else instead of where it was wrong. We wanted to just focus on what was right because we thought if we focused on what is right, we'll get more of what is right. But that was a deception. That was a misdirection that was put in by the matrix that wanted to keep the darkness dark so that their unrighteous deeds would not be known by people, would not be manifest. But the internet, which was their spy system, created to spy on us so that they would know what we were doing and what we were thinking because they didn't let anything be private. Everything was read and known and stored in computers somewhere. Everything was there. And instead of it working for their benefit, it worked for our benefit because we said, oh, yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They're creating a big spy network where they're spying on us and they're stealing our privacy. But what happened is we began to use it to awaken each other and to reveal what we were seeing and what we were experiencing and what we were uncovering. And that created heat. And so the Illuminati, the dark ones, the ones that created this system of fraud and the system of violence, the system of unlawfulness, outlaws, that's what they really are. They're outlaws. That's what the shadow is. It's an outlaw. It doesn't want to abide by nature and by natural law. It wants to create its own system so that it can be the boss. It can be in control of not just itself. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be in control of ourselves, but it wanted to control everybody else and everything else. And it's seething. That's what the glowing is. It's seething anger. It's rage that's coming up in some of these people. But it's a good thing because it's transforming even them. Some of them are being transformed. Yeah, they're pissed. That was his title that I was going to use. The Illuminati sees the awakening, and boy, are they pissed, or something like that. That was one of the titles that I played with before I did When the Darkness Begins to Glow. But there's something good that's happening, and I want you to see that. I want you to feel it. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting solid ground under my feet as I realize that we can bring down the system if we are just willing to stand up to it and make them abide by their own rules. We don't even need to create something else or to get them to believe something different. Their own rules. They've provided enough to hang themselves. Now, when I say hang them, it just stops the nonsense. It stops the fraud. Ultimately, it's a process. I don't know how long it's going to take. It's a process that's going on. And it's a process of transformation. And I applaud all of those who are willing to go out on a limb and call the judges and the courts and the police and the politicians and the bankers on their own bullshit. Because they are violating their own rules. Their own rules. They are holding other people's feet to the fire insofar as making them keep the rules against racketeering and against conspiring for malevolent purposes. And they've created it so that they have thought that they could be off the hook, but they can't. They can't. The darkness is glowing. The heat is on. And the heat is our consciousness. The heat is the light that we shine into the darkness, not pretending it's not there, but recognizing that it is there, and it's up to us to transform it, or to be part of the transformation process. That is spirituality, period. Forget all the 101, 202, 303s. That is spirituality. It's taking responsibility for everything and not calling any of it not mine. It's all ours. Each of us. It belongs to all of us and to each one of us. And it's all ours. We need to get that. We need to get that. We need to get out of the ignorance of the 101 stuff, of trying to pretend that everything is wonderful, and the positive mental attitude. We need to look at the world as the world really is. It's not an illusion. It's creation. We've created it, we experience it, and we're shining the light, and the darkness is beginning to glow. And between you and me, I think that's a wonderful thing. It's very, very good. We're in the middle of the awakening, or maybe near the end of it, or whatever. I don't know if it'll ever actually end. But there's a new thing coming. It's a new heaven, a new earth, a new humanity is being birthed as this transformative glow increases till it enlightens every one of us from the deepest part of our own being. Thank you for listening, and have a beautiful day, and namaste. Bye-bye.